We hope this webinar is informative, but if you have questions, please contact THC staff using the contact information provided at the end of the webinar. In the Round 10 section of the Courthouse Program page, you will find the Round 10 Grant Application Guide and the Round 10 Grant Application Procedures and Forms booklet, which contains fillable PDF application forms and instructions. The separate Estimated Project Budget form is a fillable Excel document that will auto-calculate budget figures for your convenience. Please be sure to use the appropriate address for delivery type. The physical address can be used for overnight delivery only, and please be aware that mail sent to the P.O. Box can get held up at the Capitol Complex Distribution Center. Please do not bind your application or place it in a notebook. Do not reference previous applications when filling out your Round 10 grant application. All required information should be provided within the current application. You may copy-paste relevant information from previous applications into the new one, but referencing old applications makes review by staff cumbersome. All application materials, including accompanying documents such as budgets or photographs, must be received in our office by 5 p.m. on Monday, February 5th, 2018. Any applications or required application materials received after this deadline will be disqualified. Applicants will be notified by email that their application is complete and accepted for evaluation. Once applications are received, they are reviewed by our grant coordinator for completeness, logged into our database by our program specialist, and distributed to the appropriate staff for review. 2 courthouse staff members review each application and present the information to a committee selected by the program's director. A public meeting will be held in April 2018 to give applicants an opportunity to provide additional information or demonstrate support for their project. The THC anticipates announcing grant award recipients at its April 2018 quarterly meeting. For more important Round 10 deadlines and dates, please see the online grant guide or view the timeline webinar. The accompanying procedures go through each section and subsection of the Round 10 grant application and explain what information is required to answer each question and provide detailed guidance when special attachments or calculations are required. The procedures are available on our website as mentioned earlier. Most of this section is straightforward, but clarification of a few questions might be helpful. The completion date is not the date on the cornerstone or the date that construction ended, but rather the date of the first official Commissioners Court meeting. Major modifications. Please note the dates of modifications that significantly altered the original appearance of the building chronologically, from the time it was originally constructed to the present. Some examples of major modifications would be the replacement of the historic windows, the removal of a courtroom balcony, the construction of an exterior addition, and so on. A more detailed description of these modifications must be included in Section 6, Original Integrity. Current function as the county courthouse. The applicant needs to determine whether the building currently functions as the primary county courthouse rather than as an annex or other courts building. As a guide in making this determination, ask yourself, does the Commissioners Court still hold its regularly scheduled meetings in the building? Does a judge hold court here? Is the building designated as the official county courthouse? Are public notices posted at the building? If not, what other county government functions does it serve? If you need assistance making this determination, please contact the THC. For Section 2, provide contact information for the primary city or county representative who will be responsible for making decisions and for signing the funding agreement and other grant documents. Typically, this is the county judge or mayor, but occasionally another individual is designated as the official point of contact. Section 3, historical designations. There are 3 primary state and national historical designations that recognize historic properties in the state of Texas. The National Register of Historic Places is a federal designation that is administered by the THC in coordination with the National Park Service. Properties may be individually listed on the National Register and/or listed as a contributing resource in a National Register Historic District. Determination of eligibility for National Register listings can be conducted by the THC in connection with federally funded projects. The recorded Texas Historic Landmark is a Texas property judged to be historically and architecturally significant. The property must be at least 50 years old and identified by an official Texas historical marker. The State Antiquities Landmark is generally a publicly owned building or site designated by the THC to receive legal protection under the Antiquities Code of Texas. Listing in the National Register is a prerequisite for State Antiquities Landmark designation of a building. Local designations can be noted on the application, but please be aware that points are only awarded for state and national designations. Each of these 3 designations can earn applicants 2 points. If you have any questions about historical designations, contact the THC's History Programs Division at 512-463-5853, and they can assist you with undertaking the process of designating your building. Answers for these 3 sections are provided in narrative form and are typically about 250 to 500 words to provide sufficient information. Applicants may choose to copy and paste information directly from their preservation master plan into the application. The master plan typically contains more than enough information to summarize the following sections. Section 4, Architectural Significance. This section contains a description of the structure's architectural significance. When describing the building's architecture, ask yourself, is it one of the best examples of a particular style or a particular architect's work, or one of the last remaining examples? What are the design elements that make it unique? Is it similar in overall design to other existing courthouses in the state from the same period of construction? Section 5, Historical Significance. This section contains a description of why the courthouse is important historically. Since all courthouses are considered significant as centers of government and early town planning, your description should focus more on events and individuals associated with this particular structure, i.e. noteworthy jurists, trials, sheriffs, community gatherings, or events. The significance of these associations on a local, state, or national level should also be discussed. Higher points are given for historical events that have a nationwide or statewide impact, if any occurred at the property. Section 6, Original Integrity. Since courthouses are typically altered over the years, please document the architectural integrity of the building. Describe the elements of the original design and materials that remain intact and visible. Conversely, describe which features have been removed, which features remain but have been covered over by later construction. What aspects of the condition of the original building remain unknown? Higher scores are given for buildings that retain more visible historic fabric and spaces. Section 7, Endangerment. For this section, the applicant must describe why the building is considered an immediate danger or threatens the life and safety of its occupants, and to provide evidence of this. Attach recent reports, good photos, and supporting documentation that detail a specific threat, such as extensive electrical code violations, building code inspectors' condemnation notices, evidence of pending litigation for ADA noncompliance, structural engineers' assessments, or demolition proposals. The endangerment section must be completed even if you do not intend to apply for an emergency grant. Applicants should describe the issues endangering its building thoroughly and use a sufficient number of photographs and other evidence to fully and clearly demonstrate the issue and the level of threat it poses to the building or its occupants. To be considered for an emergency request, fill out the emergency request form on page 38 of the Grant Application Procedures and Forms booklet. Section 8, Summary of the Project. This section is intended to fully describe the work being accomplished with the requested grant funds. It also clarifies the extent of any work required to complete the restoration in accordance with the master plan's full restoration proposal, if any. Project description. Provide a description of the proposed project for this grant cycle. Highlight the major tasks that will and will not be accomplished. If a full restoration is proposed, the scope of work can likely be taken from the master plan. It may be helpful to have an architect provide or review this section of the application. Finally, specify which county or city offices will be housed in the building upon completion of the project. The Secretary of Interior provides 4 treatments for working with historic properties. Different treatments are appropriate for different building types, spaces, and circumstances. To determine your overall treatment approach, identify the principal philosophical approach or treatment for the proposed preservation project using the Secretary of Interior standards for the treatment of historic properties. Note the treatment that the project principally represents, and identify elements of the project that meet the other treatment definitions. For example, the basement area will be rehabilitated, or the clock tower will be reconstructed. The 4 distinct but interrelated approaches are preservation, rehabilitation, restoration, and reconstruction. Preservation focuses on the maintenance and repair of existing materials, both historic and non-historic. Rehabilitation acknowledges the need to modify the property to meet current needs while retaining the building's historic character. Restoration is undertaken to depict the building and significant historic site features at a particular time in its history while removing incongruous evidence of other periods. Reconstruction recreates vanished or non-surviving portions of a property for the purpose of presenting its earlier appearance. This is an example of how the 4 treatments can be used to treat different portions of the building. Full restoration projects receive the maximum of 20 points. Note that rehabilitation of secondary spaces of the building, such as offices, is acceptable, but a restoration treatment would typically be used for the exterior and for primary interior public spaces, such as corridors, grand stairs, and courtrooms. A restoration treatment requires that any missing historic elements and materials be accurately reconstructed according to photographic and physical evidence. For any restoration activity, a period of historic and architectural significance should be selected and consistently applied to the building, usually the period of the building's original construction. Updates to the building to accommodate life safety code and the installation of necessary systems should be carefully integrated to avoid damaging historic fabric or detracting from the historic appearance of the building. Section 8, Project Scope. Describe the proposed scope of the work and how it will address any inappropriate changes made over the years, such as the removal of later additions, reconstruction of missing elements, reconfiguration of spaces, etc. Will all inappropriate changes be reversed? Will all aspects of a plan to fully restore the building be undertaken? D, Records Plan. The applicant should have a current and specific itemized plan for properly housing and protecting records before, during, and after the restoration work, whether or not they are affected by the construction activities. Note that this is not a records retention schedule, but rather evaluates space needs for storing records, storage conditions, structural considerations, protection from fire, and security concerns. The plan needs to describe how the building owner will protect records, providing a dry, conditioned space both during and after construction. We can provide examples of record plans if that would be helpful. Conformance with the Preservation Master Plan. Your approved master plan contained an approach to the project that was accepted by the THC as the project that would be undertaken if awarded a construction grant. If these plans have changed, updating the master plan to reflect the current planned project is helpful. Changes may include significant space planning changes, such as removing a major function out of the building, or pursuit of a rehabilitation approach instead of a full restoration. In addition to consistency between the grant application and the master plan's recommended scope of work, the master plan should also reflect the current conditions of the building. It may have been many years since the master plan was prepared, and conditions may have deteriorated, or a new condition may have developed. Updates to master plans may be submitted up to January 8th for staff review and comment. Project results. Here is where the applicant indicates clearly if their intent is a full restoration or a more limited phased scope or a rehabilitation. Are there aspects of the complete full restoration project described in the master plan that will not be undertaken? What additional work will be undertaken, and when will the work take place? Greater consideration will be given in the application scoring to projects that result in a complete full restoration. Section 9, photographic documentation. Including a sufficient amount of photographic documentation is important to present the condition of your building and for the THC to properly assess your grant application. Please include at least 10 current high-quality digital images to adequately represent the building. The images should be labeled with the applicant name and view, and provide current overviews of the structure within its setting so that we can get a sense of the overall context. Views of key interior and exterior architectural elements, all 4 facades, and major public spaces must be provided. Here are some examples of photographs that do not do the justice to the application. We often receive photographs that are blurry, dark, or otherwise unclear. Or often we cannot determine what the applicant is trying to demonstrate. So annotation, explaining the significance of the photograph, or possibly including arrows that point to a detail can be helpful. And finally, provide a sufficient number of photos to communicate the overall building and context, its condition, and any important details of either endangerment issues or unique architectural features. For guidance on how to complete the estimated project budget form and grant fund requests, please view the Preparing Your Estimated Project Budget Form webinar. You can also find written guidance in the Round 10 application procedures. A completed budget form is required for all applications and is what the amount of any grant award will be based upon. It is important that you provide a current budget that anticipates construction costs for 2018-19. In addition to being considered for a major funding award, if the applicant wants to be considered for an emergency grant and/or planning grant, they must complete the appropriate sections for that specific type of grant award, which is discussed in the budget webinar. Section 12. Only complete this section if you want to be considered for a planning grant. Creating architectural plans and specifications or construction documents is often the first step towards achieving a full restoration through a future courthouse grant. Applicants should keep in mind, however, that the development of plans and specification is not a guarantee of a construction grant award. Planning grants are matched at 50% and are capped at $450,000. For information about how to complete the planning funds request, please view the Preparing Your Project Budget webinar. An applicant that has approved 95% complete and current architectural plans and specifications can be considered shovel-ready for the purpose of application scoring and may receive an additional 10 points. Section 13, the preservation easement. Preservation easements ensure the long-term protection of the owner's and state's investment and are therefore strongly encouraged. If the applicant has a current deed restriction currently in effect on the courthouse that was granted in conjunction with an earlier THC program prior to the courthouse grant program in 1999, please attach copies of the document to the application. If the applicant is willing to grant a preservation easement to the THC as a result of this application being funded, please indicate so on the form. Points will be given to counties that demonstrate their willingness to protect the financial investment over an extended period of time, and more points will be given for longer easements and 20 points for an in perpetuity easement. 10 points for 50 years, 5 points for 25 years, and 0 points if the applicant chooses not to grant a preservation easement. Evidence of local support. This section provides the opportunity for applicants to demonstrate local support for their courthouse preservation project. Letters should show a wide range of support and participation from civic groups, communities, political leaders, local preservationists, and other interested parties. Evidence of the commitment of the county or city to the program should also include details of local preservation programs and incentives, as well as a plan that shows how the courthouse restoration will impact surrounding historic resources. Please include no more than 10 attachments. Compliance with law. Please indicate the record of compliance by the building owner with relevant state laws regarding courthouse preservation. Discuss work conducted in cooperation with or under the review authority of the THC since 1980 and since 1999. Please include copies of letters from the county or city notifying the THC of proposed work, along with the THC responses. Points are allocated to counties that have clearly demonstrated evidence of past commitment to existing preservation laws as shown here. If work was undertaken on the courthouse since 1980, it is the applicant's responsibility to demonstrate compliance, as in this example. The rest of the application is pretty straightforward. Anticipated additional work. If the project proposed in the application will not result in a fully restored courthouse, describe future work that would be needed and whether it might be part of a future courthouse grant application. All elements of restorative work identified in the Preservation Master Plan must be included in the funding request for it to be considered a full restoration. Resolution of support. Please provide a copy of the Commissioner's Court or City Council resolution in support of the Texas Historic Courthouse Preservation Program grant application, and all commitments made therein is required. Signature of a legal representative. The legal representative can be the county judge, city mayor, a county commissioner, or any other local official duly authorized by the Commissioner's Court or City Council for the purposes of this application. For questions about the Round 10 grant application, please contact me or the staff member assigned to work with you on your courthouse by referring to the staff map inside the Round 10 grant application guide available in the Round 10 section of the Courthouse Program webpage. Thank you to everyone once again. Please feel free to share this webinar with anyone who might be interested. And as always, thank you for your dedication to preserving Texas's historic county courthouses.